And love will tear us apart again. Love will tear us apart again.
Some time ago, I made a video about my experiences of trying to make friends with Jehovah Witnesses, specifically friends of my wife, since she is the full-blown Jehovah Witness and I wasn't. So, with my ignorant self, not knowing any better, just like every other human being in the earth, we try to make friends with them, or I try to make friends with them. Little do I know, it was just a means to their access to my thoughts or whatever, to see if they could convert me into their religion. And I quickly sort of noticed that pattern and pretty much gave up on the whole idea. Or if I do make friends, and I do have a handful, basically they're on my Facebook and things like that, it's nothing meaningful, not like friends that I had that I've grown up with, or don't give it a thought. But with them, I have to give it a thought because they have ulterior motives most of the time. But this is not about that experience. And I'll link the video below as to that particular experience that I've had myself. Now, this is concerning my kids. And this is my youngest that I'm talking about. Now, in this episode, I'm going to speak to how Jehovah Witnesses make friends among themselves. I'm pretty much a fly in the wall as far as this experience here. And I'm going to start off with one of my kids. Like I said, I was taking a walk with one of my kids, and usually on these walks, I talk to them and I try to sort of gauge their pulse as far as how their mental being is and things of that nature. See how they're going through by reading between the lines of what they respond with, and just having a regular conversation with them, like you're supposed to do with your kids. In my opinion, you're best friends in a way, to a certain extent. I was asking my kid, so, how she's doing in school. Are you making friends and things like that? See how her school life is going. And she tells me that, she's having trouble making friends at school. It's a new school. We moved into a new area, a new city. So with the COVID thing and all that, they're finally having them have in-person school meetings now. So it's kind of like regular school now, being a new girl in school and everything. And preteen and that whole, preteen scenario is just pretty difficult. And it's a trying time for people of that age group. And, I try to monitor how she's doing so she won't be all bummed out or whatever. And I was like, don't worry about it. You're a pretty cool kid to hang out with, in my opinion. If I was a kid, I would have hung out with you for sure. And I'm telling her that things will get better, as people mature. These things comes naturally. Just don't try to force it to happen, because then you'll end up with friends that you're not too, compatible with. My humble opinion, try to give her some advice. So I don't know how the subject has come along. I think I asked her straight off the bat, maybe, because knowing how Jehovah Witnesses teach everyone not to associate with people outside the religion, because it'll be, I forget the term, it's such a famous term. It's bad associations is not fruitful. It creates bad habits. So I forget what the actual verse in the Bible it is, but it's the Jehovah Witnesses' go-to verse about segregating yourselves amongst people that are not of your religion, the JW religion at that. So I asked her, so what did Mom say to you? And Mom told her not to make friends with people outside the religion, because there's like maybe three JWs in that whole school. And I think one of them is in her grade and two of them are in some other grades. She's not compatible with them whatsoever. She's not friends with them. And she told me that, yeah, Mom said not to make friends with anybody outside the Jehovah Witnesses. And my kid, she calls out BS when she sees it, and she sort of calls her mom out, my wife, telling her, but you have worldly friends, why don't you stay away from them? And then I guess the response to that, my kid tells me that she said, oh, my wife is just being nice to them. And that sounded really bad as it sounds right now. It sounded hypocritical. And I was, when I replied to that, I told her, well, that kind of sounds hypocritical. I mean, you're just going to be nice to people and not be friends with them just because of you don't share the same faith beliefs. And my kid also agreed with me as well. So my little kid, she's wising up to the ways of the Jehovah Witnesses. And I drop some subtle seeds here and there, and she just takes off with it. Currently, she's actually, they don't listen to parents totally, but recently she was watching some TikTok, that social media platform on the phones or whatever, and she looked up JWs on that, and she was telling me the other day that all these streams of other sort of ex-JW people came up explaining their experiences with 1 or 2 minute video clips on TikTok, and a lot of them were funny, a lot of them were messed up as far as the shunning and the whole JW panorama came up, and it just showed her right then and there. And my kid's sort of social media things that she likes to do on there, something that appealed to her. She's got, like every other kid, shortest attention span for long, drawn-out stuff like maybe Lloyd Evans would have on his channel. But she could stomach little bits and pieces from 1 or 2 minute videos from other kids her age and teenagers telling their experiences in a fun, Generation Z or whatever they're calling this generation sort of language that speaks to her. So yesterday, as a matter of fact, she sends me an email saying, hey, can you send me some links to documentaries about what you were talking about with these, the JW thing and what's going on with them. And boy, I was jumping for joy. So that's part of it that kind of sparked this conversation that I want to have with you guys about JWs making friends. Now, in this new community, we haven't met anyone formally, like in a Kingdom Hall or anything like that. But they all see each other on Zoom, and my wife, she's all over the elder there, the head of the elders. I don't know if he's the head or not, but he's a big muckety muck for that thing. We were moving to another location in the same city because we rented a place, and the owner of that place decided to sell that house, and we had to move. My wife, tapping into the Jehovah Witness network, asked to have some people help us move from our elder, and he enlisted, or it kind of feels like voluntold a group of young men to come over and help us out. And these guys were like late teenagers, 18 years old, up to 24, really young kids, I would say. Even the oldest of the group, he didn't seem too mature enough to be on his own and living on his own at that age. But nice people nonetheless. To my chagrin, I didn't say no. We went ahead and used them to move our furniture to this new location. And of course, I like to repay him in somehow, and I took him out to lunch. So we go to this place and we all sit down, and by this time there was we could actually be in a restaurant or something, and we went to lunch, and we got done and ordered some food, and we had a big old table, so there was like three of the young men, myself, my wife, and my kids. This was a chance to get to know each other a little bit better. I pretty much stayed kind of quiet and maybe interjected here and there, try to be funny and sociable. But my wife and these men really got to talking, and it was unadulterated JW talk completely. That's all they talked about. They talked about the congregation and things like that. But what I found sort of funny, and I've seen this pattern before, when my wife and the oldest of the group was talking to each other, it didn't seem like, getting to know each other in a normal sense of the word when regular people sort of talk to each other. It seemed like a resume, a job interview between the both of them. So my wife is saying, yeah, I was in this congregation here, I was in that congregation there, and, just a little brief history of who's who in that community, because it's such a small community, the JW community. Someone from one part of the city in the country could possibly know a 6 degree of separation to another group of people in another congregation across the country. Sometimes they would know each other as far as, people that they interact with. And then I was hearing the young man, the 24-year-old, sort of give his resume as to his spiritualness. And he was saying, oh yeah, I'm in this congregation here, my parents is so-and-so, and they've been in the religion all their lives, and they know this person, that person, and I myself, currently I am a pioneer, and it's hard to, mix work with my pioneering. It interferes with that, and they explain about their struggles, try to keep up. This is before the hours were adjusted for the pandemic thing there, make it easier for them. Most of that conversation was their brief resume of their spiritual job description of what they've done, from, oh yeah, in year so-and-so I did this, I was baptized at this place at this age, and it, like I said, it sounded like a job interview and rehashing your resume. That's how my wife and these young men were getting to know each other, is by way of sort of gauging each other to see if this person is spiritual enough for me to have association with. That's what it kind of implied to me. I was thinking about that this is my resume. I am super spiritual. I could be your friend. You are worthy enough to be my friend because you're this spiritual. You're a pioneer. You haven't gotten in trouble. You're great. Please marry my daughter. I myself had an experience like that, almost to the T, almost the same sort of experience of somebody naming off their resume to myself. Now, this was a party, a little barbecue party, get together in our other community where we escaped from. I definitely want to say that we escaped from that particular community because it was just too much for my wife as far as her mental well-being. But we were at this place, and this young woman, and she was really young. She was maybe in her late teens, 18, something like that. And we started talking, saying hello and everything, and it's not like we were alone or anything. We were still in this room with all these people, and we're just having, started up a conversation. And she mentioned that she was going to this certain country to learn about this specific subject, some schooling abroad. And I was pretty much interested. I was like, oh yeah, what country and what are you studying and things like that. And so that kind of appealed to my, being social in a way, but not talk about religion. But then she, and I think this young lady was thinking that, I was within their religion because, I'm kind of clean cut in a way, and I'm not too flashy or anything, and I was with my wife and kids there, so she probably assumed that I was part of their fold. And I don't give this standoffish image of the bad, worldly person with tattoos everywhere, stinking of liquor and beer, giving everybody the stink eye there. I was somewhat approachable, and we're having this conversation, and but she interjected that, she found a school and that could, follow her schedule of being in the meetings all the time. At that time, the meetings were, I think, 3 times a week, twice in the Kingdom Hall and once in the home study where they all get together and do it in somebody's home, book study at somebody's house. And that she'll do her schedule to work around those times where she won't miss a meeting at all. And she's already got a place lined up with another JW family and this and that. But she kind of went overboard or tried to explain herself that, she's going through that so her spirituality is not going to be affected by her schooling and things like that. And that was her resume to me to say that, oh, right on, you're such a spiritual person, try to impress me in that particular manner. And I thought that was interesting way back then. And overhearing a couple of other conversations and other get-togethers, it was almost to the T the same thing. Everyone's giving each other their spiritual resume as to, I am good enough to be your friends. I am good association according to your specification, the JW specification for a good association. Now, with all these few examples of what I've experienced throughout these years, it makes sense. Some of the questions I get when somebody don't know me in these get-togethers or whatnot, and they don't know that I'm, worldly, not of their faith. Some of the questions, or even if they knew that I was a worldly person, now I get some of these questions I'm asked as to, what do I do for work and what are my beliefs, and some more sort of intrusive questions that is kind of weird outside the JW mind space. I mean, if I meet another worldly person or regular person out there in the street and we're hitting it off as far as conversation, we're getting along and everything, these questions won't be risen until way later, if that, really. So now, like I said, in hindsight, all this is making sense to me now with all these questionings that the JW parishioners, ask myself and my wife sometimes. They're gauging to see how spiritual I am, if I'm good enough to be friends with them, and if I'm bad association or not. And with a premise like that, I can understand that could be useful, but to me, it's taken over the top. It's not genuine. That's not how you make friends. I mean, to a certain extent, yes. I mean, it's very paradoxical, if that's even a word. There's a paradox to that there. Yeah, it's just one of those weird things that JWs inculcate into their people as to, making friends. So on the XJW Reddit, I read a lot of those posts on there, and a lot of times, a lot of the posts from these PMOs and POMOs, people that are, have to still be in the Jehovah Witnesses, but not believing in it to keep their families, or people who left completely and burned that bridge with the JWs. I see a lot of questions out there. It's like, is anybody else having much trouble making friends out in the world? A lot of questions that I see a lot that comes on XJW Reddit is, how do you make friends? I'm having a hard time making friends. It's like that basic characteristics that you learn in kindergarten or even preschool when you first learn how to walk and bump your heads with another kid in a play yard. They have difficulties making friends as adults. Something meaningful friends. Not that you cannot make friends with other JWs in a meaningful way. I mean, there's always an exception to the rule. But in this case here, just making friends with people outside the religion is very difficult for them. They don't have anything in common some of the times, or they're just scared to death from all the indoctrination that they've been pounded upon from the society, from the pulpit. as to how untrustworthy and bad that worldly people are. So they're coming out the gate, with a broken leg to begin with in this race that we all are playing here. So it's really tragic, and I'm sure I'm not the only one that observes this. I mean, they are so easy to predict these days, knowing the little habits that they have, their culture. You can predict what's going to happen. I know when the kingdom halls start to open up again, and I'm going to immerse myself into their culture really hard, so I can protect my kids and be there, front and center. It's bound to happen. They're going to ask me questions like this, but this time I'm going to be ready. I'm going to say, I'm not going to say nothing, but I'm going to be ready for their questioning and their little habit to see what they could get out of me as far as, what I say. Again, JW's making friends with other JWs. It's not a natural thing that I see that they do there. It's very diluted. And of course, this is my opinion. This is armchair psychology from my standpoint, looking at all this, observing all this that's happening around me. My wife, on the other hand, she is tickled to death. She's in a new community. Her parents, really narcissistic parents, they have no influence out here or have any contact with anybody out here to kind of sabotage my wife's ability to make friends. And coincidentally, she's making friends with other moms, left and right. They're just, love bombing each other to no end in that regard. And that's what's making her happy. I'm not going to interfere with that because that's very beneficial to her mental being. She was really depressed and a lot of anxiety in our other community where that sort of community was pulled from under her, from her parents trashing her character with the other parishioners, which is pretty tragic there. And I made sure when I talked to my wife about this scenario, I said, look at the difference between here, where they don't know your parents, compared to our other location and our other residence where they knew our parents. The coincidence is you cannot deny it. They had something to do with my wife not being able to make friends as she usually does. So that's a good thing there in a way. My wife making friends now, and with other JWs, sure, why not? I don't mind. I don't have a beef with JW people to begin with. It's just their leadership I have a problem with. So that's where it's at. That's what's going on, and hopefully I start to make more videos from here on out. I got some stuff planned, and we'll see what happens.